may have heard of the legendary Polish national champion who piloted a Chaos Theory and Tenin deck, two very unconventional decks, to the top 16 at Worlds last year. Well, I'm taking a modification of his Chaos Without Brain deck, and this is the result. It's not really that similar. I'm using a couple of cards which are my personal favorites, such as Modded and Box E, because I don't like having too low a hand size. His version is probably better. I'm just fooling around with this archetype. But basically, if you don't know what it's about, it's basically fuel using Magnum Opus for long-term economy and Stim Hacks for instant burst economy and for speedy setup, because with personal workshops and SMCs, you'll be able to liberate all your breakers very quickly. Now, the main focus of this playthrough is to see how good or how bad Study Guide is. This is just an experiment. I'm not including Study Guide here because it's the best decoder for this deck, but I can see how it can easily have synergy with this deck simply because you run so many Stim Hacks. Oftentimes, you will reach the end of the server with many credits left on your Stim Hack to spare. If you don't access an NAPD or a trashable asset, those Stim Hack credits will be wasted, so why not place them in the dumping ground like Study Guide? So that's the rationale behind this deck. We'll see how it works. I'm up against HP Engineering the Future, so there's not much point running early on, especially since he started with a good burst of credits. So I'm just going to take my time, sit back, get a couple of SMCs out, and get a Magnum Opus while I'm at it. So there we go, Magnum Opus. It's quite important to get it early on, especially against non-rush decks. You want to be able to click Magnum Opus so that you can get a healthy credit level, and then you can start doing stuff. Now that I have an SMC out, I can start running, and oh dear. Oh, that's so annoying. Sherlock 1.0. Well, I don't have enough. I don't want to trace through that, so I'm just going to click through, trash the Eve. I need to slow my opponent down. So that trashing of the Eve was a must, even though it cost me 2 clicks and 5 credits. That was definitely the right call. So I continue. Basically, I'm just going to keep tapping Opus whenever I have free time. In the meantime, he does get a DBS off with an Eve campaign. Do I go and trash the DBS? I'm not sure. Here, I decide not to. Instead, I'm just going to suppress his economy and let him get all the card draws he wants. Sooner or later, he has to Jackson up, and that will be the time where his DBS will be nullified because it reshuffles his entire deck. So right now, I'm just going to keep hitting Magnum Opus. There really isn't any other reason to do otherwise right now. I could play aggressively, but it probably won't pay off. Well, now I decided to play aggressively with enough credits to break most of his ice. So he does res an Architect, which is fine by me. I'll get to see 2 cards. So the main motive here is to amass enough credits such that you can ensure a successful run and make sure that you see multiple cards while you're doing so. So running through R&D for 1 card, not very worth it. 2 cards is slightly better. And I'll have the RDI out for the rest of the game, so that's good. Now, unfortunately, without an SMC, I cannot face check the Adonis. I know no one plays Rotor Turret nowadays, but that is the last thing I want to hit right now. I do not want to be set back by an entire Magnum Opus. Well, looks like I do. Yes, that's because I have a clone chip up that I can use to grab an SMC. So I had to install Box E first to give me the memory to bring back the SMC in case he does res a sentry against me. But it's a harmless IQ, so I'll just bounce off. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to access the Adonis because pumping up the Study Guide to 4 or 5 strength to beat the IQ required a prohibitive amount of money. So that's the downside of Study Guide coming into play. With Gordian Blade or even Zuki Master, at least I have the option to pump strength. Here, pumping strength costs way too much money. So right now, I'm just going to Turtle, get more credits, and you notice my big hand size. Box E is fantastic that way. Really complements well with quality time. Now, he does begin icing up his scoring remote, which appears to be a DBS remote. But I have other plans. I'm going to Stim Hack his R&D instead. That's going to be my point of attack. He reses a barrier, so I get out my missing breaker. So now I have my entire breaker suite set up. And all he has to defend is a couple of Architects which are easily broken through. I'm very happy to see that. So that cost me quite a few credits, but they are all mitigated by Stim Hack, which means that I actually end my turn with 11 credits and a good hand size. So yeah, you don't really suffer too much of a tempo loss with Chaos Theory with such powerful economy, and that's what I really like about this deck. Now he does get another Adonis going, but he really needs to think about icing up that R&D, and it looks like he can't really do so with so few credits to his name. This means that it opens up a huge window for me to make us eye this turn. Will I choose to do that? Nope. Not only will I not make us eye, I'm going to do it with another R&D eye because I've modded that allows me to burst out and access 5 cards. Jackson Howard. I trash it. Ash. Eve. Caprice. Caprice gets trashed and another Jackson Howard. So they are all assets. I couldn't trash them all. And worst of all, there were no agendas. So this is a very bad sign. This brings me all the way down to 1 credit. And I have no way of contesting his scoring remote, so I have to click Magnum Opus. I can recover pretty quickly, but he can easily leverage on this to create a scoring window. So this turn, if he slid an agenda into that remote, as he did right here, it's perfectly safe. There's no way I will contest that. So unfortunately for me, he got off to 2 points. Now, I draw into my stim hacks, and I would love to stim hack R&D at this point, but it's pretty useless, as you might tell. I've seen a lot of cards from R&D so far, so if I run in there, I'm not going to see many new cards. And the worst thing of all is he continues playing the shell game. 3 different remotes. Oh dear. Do I contest it? One of them is bound to be a 3-pointer, a 3-2 agenda. What do I do here? That's a tough call. The good news is I have 2 stim hacks to play around with, and that can help me get through a lot of ice. But the problem is I know that there's a Caprice Nisei in the fortified remote. Do I go for it, or do I just dig R&D? I chose to... Very tempting to dig R&D right now. This seems like a good time to run R&D, but you know that you'll be giving up points if you don't run the remote server. You have to figure that there is some agenda lying somewhere. So here I go for the IQ because it is on 2 strength. Because he only has 2 cards in hand. So I do pump up my study guide to 2 strength, and I get a data sucker out while I'm at it. And I choose to leave the Eve campaign where it is, because it's unres and because I cannot afford to sacrifice any more money at this point. So he reses 2 money assets, and turns out none of them were agendas. That was a false alarm. Unfortunately, now he's up to lots of credits, so he's able to just stack an entire wall of ice on R&D. This is my worst nightmare. This deck doesn't do very well in terms of treasuring any server other than R&D, and now that there's an upgrade over R&D, it makes it all the more unpalatable to run. Okay, yeah. What could I have done better up to this point? I really don't know. I've done so many R&D deep digs, yet they all came out short of agendas. Perhaps a legwork would have been in order, but I don't think I have a legwork in this deck. Actually, I do, but I just didn't draw into it. There are 12 cards left in my deck. I think 2 of them are legworks. So here I'm about to accumulate data sucker tokens, and great. I face plant into a Nyx goal. I didn't see that coming because I haven't seen a single trace of Nyx ice, but I should have figured because I saw a Mother Goddess earlier on. So of course I get hit by it. And the worst news is I lose my Magnum Opus. The good news is I gain a sucker counter, which means that yes, I can break through any future Nyx goals. So the good news also is that he's bumped down to 5 credits, but that's not much of a consolation when he has an Eve and a pet campaign running. And there's no time to trash them all. I could stim hack into the Eve campaign, run into the pet campaign, etc. But I need to get my Magnum Opus back, so now I'm going to run R&D. And let's see what he does. He does not res the Outer Ice, so it cost me 8 credits to break through that server. And just as I'm approaching the server, I'm going to get the Magnum Opus out. And he traces me with Ash. So I could spend all my credits to break the Ash trace, trash the Ash, and access 3 cards. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right here, because I'm all the way through anyway. So I find 2 Vitruvii and trash the Ash. So finally, get some sort of footing. That was huge for me. And of course, I lose the last card in my hand. Hopefully, he doesn't run a Neuro EMP here. Probably not, but you never know. So thankfully that wasn't a caprice. A caprice would have been really horrible to deal with. Although now I'm dirt broke, which means that he can actually take advantage of this scoring window. So now he slides another what seems to be an agenda in that remote. Again, I cannot contest it. All I can do is to hit Magnum Opus 4 times. Over to him. So far, Study Guide has been proving okay. The main interaction that you must consider is that even if I encounter a Strength 4 or Strength 5 code gate, I still have Data Sucker to bolster my Study Guide, so I don't really have need to pump it to anything higher than 2 Strength for now. But for now, Gordian Blade seems to be a better choice. Up to now, it seems like if I had Gordian Blade out, I would have spent less credits. But I don't know. In the meantime, I'm just going to continue my Magnum Opus 3. There's nothing much else I can do. Unfortunately, this has given him a lot of time to get lots of credits off Pet Campaign and Eve Campaign. ABT. He does not fire ABT. That means that new remote wasn't a Jackson. Oof. Alright. Finally, I find my legwork. It's time to go. He reses the next bronze, and yeah, I realized quickly that maybe I shouldn't be running HQ because it allows him to res all the next ice. It's not very nice, but I'm going to go anyway. NAPD. Awesome. Alright, so now I up to 6 points, and I can more or less confirm he's running the 2-pointer agenda suite. I recover with Magnum Opus here. Remember, all I need is 1 more agenda point to win, and I have the same old thing on the board. Whether I'll use it to stim hack, to legwork, or RNDI, Maker's Eye, that's a very important decision that will change the game. But can make me win, it can lose me the game. Now, actually, what I should be doing here is to actually contest his Caprice server. That would be a very smart thing to do to really prevent him from scoring any agendas. If he installs and double advances in that remote, that Caprice remote there, I'm screwed. And now, suddenly, it becomes nigh impossible to contest that server. Because you can be sure that it's an Ash guarding a Caprice, and he's making a lot of money. So even if I win the Caprice side game, after going through the entire server, I still have to deal with the Ash trace. That's not going to happen. So I'm basically forfeiting the remote server as it is right now, and he gets an ABT out. So we are now tied at 6 points apiece. My only route right now is R&D, and boy oh boy, what a good time to hit a toll booth. I definitely don't have enough money to make it through the entire server after the toll. So I'm just going to jack out. That's a very, very painful lesson learned. Now I'm just going to try to contest the Ash server, and well, more next ice to contend with. Not having a Parasite in this deck is really hurting. Yep. This deck just purely runs on the efficiency of Corroder, Mimic, and in the original version it was a Gordian Blade. But this won't do. Against next ice, I'm going to struggle a lot. Magnum Opus economy cannot outpace the amount of credits you need to break through the HB servers. So at this point, I decided to go through the server. He does not res the middle ice, and I arrive at the Sherlock, realizing that I do not have the resources needed to break the Sherlock. I didn't have the clicks, I didn't have the 5 strength mimic, or rather the 2 data sucker counters to lower Sherlock down. So I had to jack out. At least it forced the Caprice res. Not much of a consolation. What I really want to do is to get rid of the Caprice on R&D. So here I can only gain credits and hope that I can outpace his economy at this point. The good news is I actually managed to pump my study guide all the way to 5 strength, so breaking the toll booth is only 4 credits a run. Only. Just 4 credits. Yep, in the meantime he does install something new in that remote. It could be the 3-2 for the win. So I need to make a run on R&D now. It cost me 8 credits to get through the 3 inner ice and 4 credits for the toll booth. I'm going to see if he reses a Caprice this time, and sure he does. I'm still going to break through and hope that I win the side game. At least he doesn't have a Nisei counter to stop me, but will I win the side game? Always bid 1, always win. So, do I win? 4 cards off the top of R&D. Nope. He sacks a Jackson and shuffles in 3 agendas. Or rather, 3 non-agendas. And hey, another Jackson, why not? for massive agenda dilution. So, 4 cards. Eli, Nick Silver, Architect, Hedge Fund. Well, those Jacksons worked very, very well. And the good news is I've gotten rid of the Caprice on the remote as well. So that's a plus. Now I'm going to check archives. If he chose to shuffle in, if there were agendas in archives and he chose to shuffle in all the non-agendas, he wouldn't have anything left to shuffle the agendas left in archives. But turns out that he was being a good boy. He did not leave any agendas in archives for the win. And it turns out that he doesn't have the winning agenda in the remote either. So I'm kind of saved for now. I have his R&D locked up, but I do not know if he's clean in HQ. Well, turns out he's not. He has an agenda in there, and he's, well, basically taunting me saying, nope, you can't get into this server. I only have 4 credits. I can't rerun R&D. My only hope is to contest the remote, and I know I need to run there twice because there's an Ash there. So, without much thinking, it became painfully obvious that there was no way I was going to get this agenda. I mean, the agenda could be an ABT, and he could just double advance it just to toy around with me. Because he knows full well, and I do too, that there's no way I'm getting in that server. So there's nothing archives, there's nothing on R&D. I mean, there could be something on R&D. I could see one more card, but that's pretty marginal. So the only other place I can get the final agenda from is HQ. It only makes sense. That's the only place I can go for. And I need to go there now, because this is the last turn. So, I hit Magnum, I draw a card, I hit Magnum, and I run. Breaking next bronze for 1 credit, because Study Guide is awesome, and I don't see anything. There was nothing in hand, he only had 1 agenda, which he installed there, and now he scores out for the win. It's a 5 advanced agenda, that's why he double advanced it. So that was the game. Not much to say, except that I got relatively unlucky on the accesses, but on the same note, I wasn't able to suppress his economy, and that was a big reason why I lost, because it was so expensive to get through all the servers, not just R&D, but the remote as well. Yeah, Sherlock 1 is just so good. Even with Data Sucker, it's very annoying because it's so hard to collect Data Sucker counters, especially when there's a next scope on archives. I find it increasingly true that it's very hard, if not just outright impossible, to contest Glacier Corps with runners nowadays. Even though you have Stim Hack and Magnum Opus economy, you just can't beat Taxing Ice plus Caprice plus Ash. It just doesn't work that way. You need some sort of early pressure, and without that, that was the main reason why my deck lost, because it wasn't able to apply pressure early enough and get some early agendas, or to disrupt the Corps tempo. Oh well, thanks for watching Happy Net Running. See you around.